There's nothing to fear here. That's what scares me.
Hi everyone. Today I decided that we're going on a field trip, so I'm taking you for a little ride. So you won't have to look at me sitting in a chair talking to you this time, but rather we'll have a little ride. And I'm actually driving to take a walk. So I know how it sounds. We're definitely in the in the 21st century. So anyway, I will talk about referencing. By the way, it will be not as structured as your typical lecture would be, so apologies for that. If you feel bored or irritated halfway through or now, feel free to just switch the video off. So let's talk about referencing. I'll just try to give you a few pieces of advice about referencing, and then I'll actually share my own story related to referencing, and then I'll also talk about what I dramatically called the truth about referencing. So firstly, why referencing? So many of you, many students, especially master's students, ask me about referencing. You are worried, you're quite often concerned that you're supposed to provide a lot of references, and basically you're not sure how many or where to find them, and you're stressed because just because of the number of references that is required. And I understand, because maybe if you're a PhD student, then you kind of, although you have to refer to even more sources, but you kind of expect it. And if you're a master's student, then yes, it's a new thing. And I remember myself being shocked at how you have to provide references for any kind of claims or any kind of statement that you made, and I thought it was odd at first. So like common sense things which you still have to support with a reference. The good news is, and this is what I always tell the students, you don't worry, because you don't really have to read every single thing from cover to cover, every single source that you provide, because here, remember that I'm definitely not encouraging you to lie about what you have or have not read, or to cite sources that you have no idea about, but rather to remember that sometimes you don't really have to read these things. Like, let me give you just a brief example. This example will obviously be from the field of education, since this is my own field. So if I was working or preparing to work on a paper or dissertation that would be about group work, so English lessons, teach English through group work or collaborative work to Polish students in Poland. In my literature review, I would obviously talk a lot about group work, and I would probably refer to a number of contexts where research has been conducted. So when doing so, I would obviously mention these different contexts. So I would, for example, say that at some point that research has been done in Asia, in Europe, and here is where I would be providing these sources in brackets. But Since I'm just trying to make my point about research having been conducted in a variety of contexts, obviously I don't have to read every single thing. So whenever I find something that actually represents a different context, so in this, just to make my point, so here, whenever I find something about just some sources that I know, some research that has investigated the Asian context, I'll just put it in my references. When I find something that talks about Europe or about specific countries in Europe, again, I'll put it in my sources, but I won't really read it unless, of course, I want to focus more on the methods they use or some kind of claims they made. Otherwise, you don't really have to always read every single thing that you refer to. And in fact, sometimes I've had experiences where I only desperately looked for a reference for a source that where the author made a certain claim, just so that I could finally put it in brackets and just, you know, become that nobody was gonna tell me that I'm overgeneralizing or I'm just talking about my own beliefs rather than something that has been supported by empirical evidence. So, for example, I'll give you an example of my own master's dissertation. So, long story short, I had a questionnaire as one of my methods in my master's dissertation, and after I've collected all the data and was getting ready to analyze it, I realized that I forgot to add this neutral response to my questionnaire. So neutral response, like, you know, the I don't know or I'm not sure response. I'll just quickly show you where we are. This is Edinburgh. We're above Edinburgh. It's a nice sunny day too. So anyway, I forgot to add this neutral response. So I started to panic, obviously, because I've already collected all that data, and it wasn't easy either. So, and I didn't have time. So what did I do? I decided that what I need to do now is to find somebody who argued that neutral response is not necessary or not needed or not desirable. So this is all I was doing. I focused desperately on finding a source or somebody who actually said that we don't need that response. So rather than going back and trying to collect new data, which was not possible at that point, I thought, okay, what I need to do now is just to argue that it was my decision in the first place. And I was like cheating, so I'm just being really honest with you now about the whole process. So yeah, I finally found somebody who said that. There are not that many people who argue that the neutral response is not needed, but there was a guy who did, and actually the good thing about it, so I didn't really have to lie because I agreed with this guy eventually. So he basically said that not in case of, it depends on your research focus, but in some cases it's not desirable to have this neutral, this I don't know or I'm not sure response, because there are topics where, well, generally people, the common sense tells us that people should have some kind of opinion on these topics, and this was, I guess, I believe the topic, the kind of topic that I investigated. So this was the happy ending, if you like, of my story. So again, referencing. So that was my point. So just all I did was just to find somebody. I had to read this source because I wanted to know the arguments against the neutral response. But again, it just shows you that sometimes you just have to find something to put in brackets and not worry about it. Sometimes you have to read it. Sometimes you just have to skim through it and just to see if they support your argument. I do it a lot. In this case, in this story, I actually read the full article, obviously, but I do it a lot when I just want to support some claim that it's like almost common sense. But again, in academia, nothing is common sense. That's what I've been told by my supervisors a long time ago. So if you feel like it's common sense, all you have to do really is just find somebody who actually said it, and just put it in your brackets. You don't always have to read the full thing. So finally, we're coming to this truth about referencing. So this is the truth. You would be surprised how many authors or respected academics, how many of them do the same. I quite often hear it from my colleagues. They find it's quite common for them to find sources where they are being cited by other authors, and they look at the source and they say, "Oh my God, I never said that. This person hasn't read my article." So she or he obviously found it in another article in the reference list and decided to cite me or refer to what they think I have said, but I never said that. So it's the evidence. Another evidence is a study. I was working on a study of a certain educational approach to teaching, basically. I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want these studies or these authors to be identified on the basis of what I say, because it's not my purpose here to criticize a particular person, but this was a study of certain educational approach, and basically as I was reading one of the sources, I found a fact, or so it appeared, about the number of these of higher education institutions in Europe that have adopted this educational approach between the year 2000 and 2010. And what it said was that the number of universities that provided this kind of education increased 1,000 times. There were 1,000 times more universities in 2010 that had this approach than in the year 2000. So, and just to tell you, this educational approach, to adopt it, it requires restructuring the whole framework within this institution. It's not easy. So I thought, oh my God, there were 1,000 times more universities than just 10 years ago. It doesn't sound right. I knew there were a number of institutions that had this approach in the year 2000, so it wasn't like an increase from one university to 1,000 universities. We're talking about we're talking about whole Europe. So if there were 100 in 2000, that would mean that there were 100,000 universities in the year 2010, which didn't seem right. So I went to another source that this source cited as citing the original source. So it said like Richards 2010 cited in Michael's 2011, just an example. So I went to that, the second source, and what I found is that this guy also did not cite the original article, so this, let's assume, Richards, but again he cited another source that cited Richards. So I went there, and it just went on and on and on, and I was trying to just trace that, original claim, which I finally did, and sure enough, it was a mistake. So he never said it was there were 1,000 times more universities that offer this approach. Just have a look at this view as well. This is where I'm gonna be walking in a minute. Yeah, so this guy said, I think it was the increase by 1,000, so 1,000 more universities, not 1,000 times more, just 1,000 more universities. So obviously these guys did not do their homework So they just decided to go the easy way and just take somebody else's word for it. So you can see that these academics, they don't always read every source that they cite. Again, in this video, I'm not telling you not to read the sources or to lie about your sources, but just remember that, first of all, you don't always have to go into much detail. Secondly, remember, don't be discouraged when you look at these articles and publication and you're thinking, oh my god, they have read so much, how am I gonna do it? Because as you can see, they don't always read every single source. So this is it. As I said, I've tried to share some useful knowledge with you. I couldn't really focus as much as I'd like to because of the driving, but I really wanted to show you this beautiful country as well. So this is it for now. Thank you for watching, if you're still here, that is, and enjoy your day.